Hello, welcome back to Narcritics, giving you your fix.
Yes, welcome back my friends. Sorry our first review has taken so long. It's been a little bit harder than we thought it was going to be, but we definitely have the hang of it now. And we are indeed going to go ahead and review a whole bunch of werewolf movies, beginning with...
An American Werewolf in London.
Absolutely, my personal favourite. I've always been obsessed by werewolf stuff for some reason, ever since I was a little kid.
Yeah, you still are.
I still am, and I've always wanted to do something like this. So we're just going to go ahead and talk over some various scenes in the movie. Hopefully some of you have seen this film before, and we'll try and point out some trivia as we go along as well.
We've had so much fun putting this review together, so we really hope you enjoy watching.
Enjoy. This movie was made in 1981 by John Landis. He's best known as the creator of the Blues Brothers, Animal House, and the Michael Jackson music video Thriller. But this is his best work. Blue Moon plays over the opening credits. Every song in the movie is a reference to the moon. It's a nice touch. The plot follows David and Jack, two American backpackers exploring the Yorkshire moors. Well, it's set in Yorkshire at least. These scenes were actually filmed in Wales.
You have lovely sheep.
Boys, keep off the moors. Stick to the roads. The best of luck.
After hiking a few miles, the two come across the slaughtered lamb. Talk about a creepy name for a pub. There's an awkward silence as they go inside, and the locals just seem to stare at them. And just look how sarcastic the landlady is.
Yes. Do you have any hot soup?
No.
Well, do you have any coffee then?
No.
Do you have any hot chocolate?
We've spirits and beers. If it's something hot you want, you can have tea.
Then you have tea.
No.
Oh.
Yeah, this is one of my favourite scenes. By the way, that's Rick Mail from The Young Ones making a random cameo playing chess in the background. The funny thing about this scene is that there's a werewolf on the loose and all the locals know about this. But they kick the two young boys out of the pub anyway just because Jack asks about a wall carving. What an overreaction. I wonder if every time there's some trouble in this pub, someone's thrown outside to the wolf. What a bunch of dicks.
As they leave, the locals warn them to beware of the moon and stick to the roads. Would it have been more helpful if they turned around and said, "Hey, watch out, there's a werewolf out there"? And what's with the stick to the roads? Can't werewolves walk on roads? I digress. When they head outside, the moon is full. Jack and David ignore the warning to stick to the roads, and realise this a little too late. This next scene is my favourite. It builds up suspense really well.
Yeah, it really cranks the tension for the next 5 or 6 minutes. You know the attack's coming, but you just don't know when, and your level of fear just builds with theirs.
Sounds far away.
Not far enough. Come on.
Jack! What? Where are we going?
I don't know. I'll tell you when we get there.
Okay, because...
You really scared me, you shithead.
You gonna help me up or what?
So here's where we get our first shots of the werewolf. As you can see, this is a quadruped, and normally werewolves are bipedal. They walk around on 2 feet, like a man, like in the old Wolfman movies and everything. But for this movie, Rick Baker chose to go with a demon hound from hell kind of design. And if you're wondering why you can only see the front of the wolf, it's because this is actually half a wolf connected to a wheelbarrow. That's how this effect is achieved.
It's a werebarrow.
Jack is killed in this attack, but David survives, now infected with the werewolf gene himself. He is saved by the creepy villagers from earlier, who are now armed to the teeth. I always wondered about this when I saw it as a kid. Like, if they were so well armed, why didn't they just kill the werewolf in the first place years ago? Doesn't make any sense.
Fast forward a few weeks and we see David waking up in hospital, now in London. This scene features another bizarre cameo appearance. This is Frank Oz, the voice of Miss Piggy and Yoda. That's right, Yoda. I don't know about you, but this guy doesn't look much like a Jedi Master to me.
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
So David starts having nightmares. These dream sequences still creep me out. In this scene, he's attacked by Nazi werewolf stormtroopers? Okay. That's a pretty badass creation. They kill his family, cut his throat, and burn his house down. Wow, scary stuff. You never know when David's fallen asleep. This keeps the viewer on edge because you're always waiting for that next sudden jump.
I've just had a nightmare.
Not to worry, I've just the thing.
And just when you thought things couldn't get much creepier, Jack comes back from the dead.
Can I have a piece of toast?
As you do. Jack warns David that he is the werewolf, and to break the curse he must kill himself. This part is both funny and scary, and that's part of the reason why it was badly received in cinema at the time. Nobody had ever really seen horror and comedy mixed together, so nobody knew how to react to it. It was quoted as too funny to be a horror, but too scary to be a comedy.
Beware the moon, David.
David dismisses Jack as just another nightmare. In the meantime, he's been falling in love with a nurse called Alex, played by Jenny Agutter. Some of you may recognise her from The Railway Children or Walkabout. She invites David to stay with her while he's in London. Baby, I have something to confess. I'm having nightmares of you being stabbed to death by German werewolf stormtroopers. I'm having visits from my dead friends telling me I'm going to turn into a monster and kill people.
I'm in love with you!
Works every time. David continues to be visited by Jack. Every time we see him, he's in a more advanced state of decomposition. Most of you have probably seen this horror movie cliche before of the swinging bathroom mirror, but to my knowledge this was the first time it was ever used. So here comes the famous transformation scene. This is 31 years old and it still blows my fucking balls off every time I see it. This was created by Rick Baker, as I mentioned earlier. He won an Academy Award for Outstanding Contribution to Makeup Effects in 1981. He was the first person to ever win this award, and he's won it more times than anybody else. Baker was also hired to do the makeup effects for the recent Wolfman movie starring Benicio del Toro, which he did, but at the last minute the studio decided to scrap his work and just use CGI instead. Personally, I've never been a fan of CGI, and these practical effects I find far more entertaining, even going back to the work of Ray Harryhausen. I may be pointing out the obvious here, but these head-stretching effects were accomplished by fake latex heads that they would just stretch apart from the inside. But the effect is so believable. Never has the transformation from man to wolf looked so painfully realistic.
What we're showing here is actually a shortened version of the transformation. You should really go check it out, because it really is a great scene.
Yeah, you know what? Another thing I've always wondered about. How did he get out of that fucking house in the first place? Whatever. I guess if I believe he can turn into a werewolf, I guess I can believe he can open doors. Anyway, he kills 6 people in his first night. Now, we don't have the time to show you all of those, but we have to show you this one, because this is just the funniest.
Yeah, I agree. I think this scene is just fucking hilarious. I mean, look at this guy. He's running for dear life. He's clinging onto that briefcase for dear life. What's so important in that briefcase that makes you want to hold on to that when you're being chased by a fuck-mothering werewolf? That's my question. I mean, look, he's even stopped to pick it up. There is nothing. Oh, God's sake, dude, really? Just get up and run. No? You're gonna have a lie down on the escalator? Really? I love how the werewolf comes out. Look at the bottom there. Can you see it? Yep, right there. And he's still sat there. Run! Run! No? Oh, dude, you really did deserve to die. You did. Sorry.
So cut to the following morning and we see David waking up in a wolf pen. Now here's a scene that must have taken some balls to shoot. Excuse the pun. I like this because in most werewolf movies, you never see the kind of challenges that the guy will have to go through to get home naked the following day.
Here's another interesting fact for you. This zoo was actually open to the public when they were filming. These people you see wandering around in the background, they're not extras. I have to say, kudos to the actor for having the guts to do this. I certainly wouldn't do that personally.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Yes, sir? A naked American man stole my balloons.
What?
What?
Anyway, David has no idea what happened to him the previous evening, but he finally begins to accept the fact that he is a werewolf when he is informed of the murders from a taxi driver. If any of you have seen Snatch, believe it or not, this is Bricktop.
Last night, 6 of them.
I don't care if it's Muhammad, Imad, Bruce Lee.
So David can't live with the fact that he's a killer. He decides to take Jack's advice and commit suicide. Unfortunately, this isn't as easy as it sounds, and he hasn't got the balls. He has one last meeting with Jack inside a porno theatre. The title of the movie is See You Next Wednesday. This was the first script that John Landis ever sent to a studio, and it's now referenced in all of his films as just kind of a fuck you to the establishment.
We now see Jack in his final stage of decomposition. Doesn't he just look pretty? At this point the character is no longer the actor himself. He's in fact sat behind him controlling an undead puppet of Jack. As Sean mentioned, the porno playing in the background was also shot by John Landis. Check this scene out.
What are you doing here? You promised never to do this kind of thing again.
I never promised you any such thing.
Not you Twitter.
I've never seen you before in my life.
Oh, sorry.
Good movie.
Good movie indeed, David. Again, I love how the werewolf's victims stick around to haunt him because of this curse. Bet that'd play on your conscience. All 6 victims are sat in the theatre with David. Talk about a guilt trip.
You've left my wife a widow, and my children fatherless. And I understand I am to walk the earth in limbo, one of the living dead, until the wolf's bloodline is severed and the curse lifted.
You'd still be alive if you dropped the briefcase, dude. So David's victims try once more in vain to get him to commit suicide, but he just can't do it. We're shown yet another very good transformation scene, and here's where we get probably the best glimpse in the movie of the werewolf itself. He goes on a rampage through Piccadilly Circus. Piccadilly was closed off for only a couple of hours in order for this stunt choreography to be filmed. Here we see John Landis being thrown through a shop window. Landis used to be a stuntman himself, so had great intuition for filming these kind of action sequences. Anybody familiar with the Blues Brothers car chase will know exactly what I'm talking about. Although it should be noted that Landis was involved in some huge controversy when directing an episode of The Twilight Zone. There was a helicopter crash resulting in the deaths of several people. He's definitely a director who likes to take risks. Well guys, we're going to cut the review short right there because we don't want to ruin the ending for anyone who hasn't seen it before.
No, we're not going to spoil all the fun.
Absolutely. Now, like I said, I love this film, I adore it. I certainly consider it the best of the werewolf genre. It's quite hard for me to say why. I think the effects are amazing, the music is superb, the dialogue is sharp. It's not only really scary, but it's also really funny. But I think the main thing is that John Landis and Rick Baker both had a huge admiration and respect for the old werewolf movies, and it was their love and that they put into this film that really gives it its overall unique tone, and that's why it really works. Now, I saw this when I was a kid, and it had a huge impact on my child mind, but you saw this for the first time last week.
Yeah, I only saw it recently, but the only things I can really touch on, I think even with age, it's still a timeless classic, it's still fresh. Even with the lack of CGI, I mean, Rick Baker did a really good job of that. The effects are stunning. The integration of comedy and horror, like you said, absolutely seamless. There's nothing I can really complain about on my half. Not much criticisms. What can you say? It's a great movie.
There we have it, folks. Not much criticism we can give you. So all we can say is check out the movie. We both loved it.
And up next?
Up next, we're going to do my second favourite werewolf movie of all time.
The Wolfman.
The Wolfman, 1941. This is basically where it all started. There was one werewolf movie before this, but it's not really worth talking about. So that's going to be our next review, and we hope to see you all there to check it out. Bye for now.
As if things weren't fucked up enough, Jack comes back from the dead to tell his David back in the curse of in the other time. But happy birthday, you're welcome.
Thank you. In this scene, David's attacked by zombies? There are no zombies in this movie. So not being able to live with the fact that he's a killer, David decides to take Jack's advice and commit suicide. Unfortunately, he hasn't got the balls. He has one more meeting with Jack inside a porno theatre. The title of the movie is See You Next Wednesday.
Brilliant.
No.